I think Richard's still trying to organise the chaos in the previous meeting.
Yeah. Hi, Joe. It's Paul Bray. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. Hey, Paul.
Right. I do. Yeah, there's still a few people to come across, I think. It did seem a bit chaotic there just now. So, yeah, I was just happy to let it go on.
Fair enough.
Have you got a template or an agenda for what we should be looking at for this meeting today, or is there? Have you got any preconceived ideas about what you might want to achieve through this?
I haven't, no. So I missed the first round of these meetings, so I'm playing catch up here. And my background is I'm an architect.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how much I can really contribute. I'm interested in this because we have a surveying team in house,
right,
who are busy scanning and I think identifying fire doors, etc. I'm not quite sure how they want to go about that. So I'm here to kind of hopefully learn something from you guys, with a view of being able to inform our team. But I think Richard said that he was going to jump into this group. I'm not sure.
Right. Okay. It's Laura, I can't see you on video, but I can see you've got a name up. I don't want to be talking or us talking without acknowledging you're in the room. Can you hear us okay?
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Okay. So, and there's Nick's just joined us. Hello, Nick. It's Paul Bray. We're just trying to get together and understand. I think it's probably important to understand each other's roles and what we might bring or might learn from being in the group, because we could be like teaching each other stuff that we already know, or we might not be taking advantage of other people's knowledge base. So I think the number of people in the group. Hello, Richard.
Hi there. Sorry, I had to get everybody else sorted out.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think, is this the complete group, 5 of us? Is that right? Am I counting right?
There should be a couple. Should be a couple more actually. The
less is the better at the moment, I think, because it could end up being a massive, talking shop without getting much.
Yeah, we want to get some. You had. I read through your notes from last time, and you had a very good chat. And it was. It seemed to be very productive, but it wasn't productive. We didn't actually. It didn't actually get onto the document.
No,
which I think, which is what I want to do today.
So, I would like to, if I can, I'd like to try and steer this in a way, because and this is why I want to understand what everybody else has gone through.
Right, I am very happy.
Sorry. Yeah, Richard, go on.
Yeah, I'm very happy for you to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to steer the meeting with the document, then go ahead, ma'am.
Right, yeah, because I feel that, and this is why I want to understand what everybody's bringing to this part of this section, because my organisation and the team that I've got in my team, we've done a lot of work on this. So I feel that I may have something that I would class as best practice. So other organisations doing very similar and may say it's the same. So I've got a lot of stuff and experience that I can bring to this, and you can say, yeah, that works for us, or it doesn't work for us, or you can go, right, we can look at that and then adopt certain elements of it. So this is, for me, I can share you everything that we've done already, because I think we're quite well advanced. But I want to understand what everybody else is going to bring to this group, so that I'm not dominating the way forward. Because if you let me, I will. So
okay, yeah, no, that's fine, mate. Well, firstly, let's remember we're framing it around the existing document, which we have. Yeah, which we have text. I know you've put a lot of notes onto that, Paul. What I'm going to suggest is we actually use your copy that you put your notes on.
I only went through a bit on section 3, I think. I can't remember.
Yeah, but it's a start. It's a start.
But so we can do that. But can we just have an intro about who's who in this group? Because I don't know anybody in this group, and I would.
Well, let's make it very quick, because we've only got half an hour.
Yeah, a minute each is all I want to know, because I found out that Joe's an architect, so he's working with an architect's company. Is interested in.
All right, Nick.
His doors.
Right. So come from a background of door manufacture. studied fire safety, and currently do fire door inspections and compliance within the company I work for.
Laura.
So I'm a strategic fire safety manager for a housing association in the Northeast, and I've been working in the fire industry for about 15 years now. So yeah.
Okay. I'm fire safety manager for Plymouth Community Homes. I've been doing that for nearly 4 years now. Before that, I was head of fire safety for Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue Service for 7 years, and before that, I've been in fire safety since 1998. So I've been doing it a little while, and we've been doing, you know, since I joined the social housing, it's all about fire doors.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Right, let's get to, so I'll share the document. Attempt to share the document. Right. Tell me if you can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we're working on. Now, Paul, you've added a lot of notes to this, which I think are valid. We've got to be a bit, and I'd like your views on this. We've got to be a bit careful, because the point about this is that it's simple, it's concise, and it's all there in almost not exactly layman's language, but there's no complications. Now, you've put in there, Paul, about minimum requirements for inspectors of doors. Yeah. But
yeah, that's taken from the guidance. I can't remember if I took it from the guidance in the purpose-built block of flat guides, or some other guidance that might be on the regulations. The guidance from the fact sheet, it's probably there. So the information is already out there, and this is what we talked about at our last group meeting, was that we should be very cautious about overcomplicating this process, because this is a low-level check on an existing door. It is not a type 1 or the type 2 check that we've discussed in the previous document. So, and this is to be carried out, in my opinion, by people who have been given basic training in what to look for in a door, the main bits that are there. We already do this with our staff. In the whole of our staff in PCH have go out, our operatives, any repair operatives going into a flat, inside the flat, have to carry a check on the fire alarm, and they have to do a basic check on the fire doors, looking for self-closures, intermittent strips, damage, gaps, etc. And if it doesn't meet that criteria, they report that. And we've got a tablet process that allows that to all happen. So it automatically creates a repair, which then goes to our specialist fire door team that will carry out the repair if a carpenter isn't already on site and carry out minor repairs. So there's a whole process wrapped up in doing this. It reports back to a spreadsheet, a template. So we're able to keep an idea, a key handle on what's occurring on our flat front doors. We've recently introduced an asset tagging process for our communal doors, because there's a requirement under the new regulations for buildings over 18 meters to have the communal doors checked every 3 months. So you don't want to necessarily resource a specialist team to do that, because there's a massive cost implication.
What I'm thinking is, a lot of what you're saying there is actually not necessary for this group. It's more about the methodology, which and management of the inspections and the whole inspection regime, which would be more pertinent to group 4, wouldn't it?
There was a conversation with George about whether I wanted to be in group 3 or 4, but I also feel it's important that we get this right at group 3, because if we're not doing this right at a national level, there'll be so many different versions of it going around.
Absolutely. But what I'm trying to do, what I'm thinking is, if we overcomplicate group 3 by including stuff that actually would be covered in group 4, then we're overcomplicating it, aren't we? Do you see what I mean?
Well, this group can be done in about half an hour then, really, because you just put that in.
Just put what in?
what I've said minimum requirements for inspections of fire doors.
Right.
I don't.
Well, there's a lot of other things we need to look at, aren't there?
Yeah. Look on.
Okay. So, I mean, at your last meeting, you didn't actually go through the document, did you? Is that correct?
No, we talked around what we felt we needed to include.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So okay. So let's go through the document.
Okay.
Right. 3.2. There are a number of factors that will help determine a satisfactory standard, a suitable system, and the frequency of inspection. Not least the usage and importance of the doors in terms of overall fire containment. And do you agree with that, or do you want to add something to it, or subtract something?
I'll let somebody else speak.
Anybody got any views on that?
So just if we step away from this just being for residential, and if you look at it for all fire doors, that's the approach that I adopted when I worked within the NHS, because obviously if you look at the usage of doors within the NHS, you've got a whole range of doors. Obviously if you look at that then within a high-rise block of flats, you could have cupboard doors that only get opened once a year. They're just not high frequency used doors. Whereas if you think of your lobby doors, which are high frequency used, they'll be getting a lot more battering than like a riser door, which will only get opened when when someone goes in to look at that riser. So if you look at it from that point of view, some doors will naturally last longer than others because they're just simply not undergoing wear and tear of the hinges or of the door or anything like that. And then also if you think doors on communal areas, now I've found from my personal experience, doors in communal areas, if someone's got a pram or something like that, they don't care about the door, they'll just ram into those things. You know, and that's why I would tend to agree with that statement. There are different factors that are going to affect the longevity.
I would think it covers it. Anybody think it doesn't cover it?
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be difficult to put a timescale to it, but you just have to have what a minimum inspection regime would require. So either every 12 months minimum, where you're putting a report together, or where the statutory requirements are for 3 monthly inspections, that you've got a system in place that adequately records that. But yeah, I agree with you. Can't put a scale on.
Yeah, you see, again, I think, Paul, you see what you're saying, I totally agree with you, but I think that would be on Group 4's plan. Yeah, this is how you're doing the actual inspection, not about what the regimen is. I mean, I might be wrong, but that's kind of what okay, so BS 99 whatever gives the following specific guidance for routine fire door inspection and maintenance. Well, if that's the specific guidance, it's the specific guidance. I don't think we're going to argue with that, unless there's anything we want to add in, if we don't think it or needs clarifying.
The need potentially for more than what that says. I'm not sure on the actual wording just off the top of my head, but I think it's quite limited in the fact that it says, I believe it guides you to inspect twice a year, if I remember correctly. Are we happy that that single statement suits all buildings?
I do think that can be a bit onerous, depending on the types of, especially with regards to residential buildings and blocks of flats. Trying to gain access to resident more than once a year is hard enough. If you make it a statutory requirement, or the government haven't made it a statutory requirement, and that's where I would say we need to be guided by what's statutory, so what do we have to do, and then what do we do as considered best practice. So you go.
You're questioning whether the time frame is important for this section.
Yeah, because we're talking about our section is what is being done in this type 3 inspection. That's what it is. Yeah. Group 4 are sorting out the methodology, the plan of what happens. They're the group that say, right, it should be 6 months or not or whatever. Yeah. Or it could be that they're just saying, you know, that they're just putting out a template for a plan rather than filling out that template, because it'll vary between buildings. But what I'm saying is that's them. Let's not overcomplicate ours, because we're just talking about what happens in the inspection.
Yeah.
But as I say, I'm trying to highlight this, but it won't highlight. I can't do anything with it. So I'll have to remember. Oh, sorry. We'll have the meeting notes anyway, so I'll get it from there. Okay, so page 50. All right, criticality. How important the fire door is to the occupant should be considered in line with any PEEPs and other fire safety factors relevant to the building.
I find that kind of strange to say. Are there unimportant fire doors?
I think it relates back to the healthcare application as much as anything, because you're not likely to have PEEPs at this moment in time. The way the legislation is, there's no requirement for PEEPs for people in general needs housing. You may have it in shelter schemes. So it's where we're applying this.
Right. Yeah.
To a certain extent, it's a rhetorical question, well, maybe, because the door is always important. It doesn't matter about the occupants. The door is a critical element of the compartmentation of the building.
Yeah.
So is it a relevant question? How important is the door? You know, if you're looking at, especially with hospitals and care premises where you're working on progressive horizontal evacuation, that might be where it's critical. Or you've got premises where you've got refuges. So it depends on what type of building you're applying this to. So again, you might say that there could be added to part 4. If it's going to be the building type, the door may have a more critical value within the fire strategy, because if general needs stay put, the most important fire door is the front door to the flat, probably, you know, because it stops the fire from getting out into the areas, because everybody else is going to stay in the flat. In a shelter scheme, it might be slightly different. In residential care, it's going to be definitely different, because you're working on fire compartments to evacuate vulnerable persons to await further evacuation, or to make sure they're in a safe place. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree. So we're saying that 3.6, 3.6 should actually is not really us. It should be group 4.
Yeah.
When you look at the wider NHS document, after that sentence there, they go in to describe the dependency of your patients within NHS. So I think by cutting out all of that, that doesn't make sense within this document now.
I think you're right, yeah.
Whereas if you were to put that in an NHS setting, it makes perfect sense why they would mention that.
Yes.
But if you apply that to blocks of flats, it doesn't. I think the criticality of the door is, what is the function of that door? Is it a staircase door? Is it a flat entrance door? You know, what is the purpose of that door? Whereas they're akin this to the dependency of your patients, which makes sense in a healthcare setting.
Yeah, I think you're right. So we're saying we don't dump that 3.6, we rewrite it.
Yeah.
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 Because within your block of flats, you'll have more certain fire doors have a higher criticality than other fire doors. If it was a door to an electrical cupboard, a 30-minute fire door to an electrical cupboard, I'm not saying it's not important. However, if that was your door to your single staircase and you lose your doors to your single staircase is gone, and you're kind of hoping and praying that nothing happens. There will be a natural hierarchy to your compartmentation within your block.
Yeah.
Protecting your means of escape being predominantly number 1, And if you have a single staircase, that will be the thing that you really need. You can't afford to go wrong. If you start having your single staircase go wrong, you're then having to look at other measures that you need to do within the building.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a rewrite then.
Yeah, if we even do we feel that it's needed to be in that section? Or is it just a reminder that doors are important?
I see what you're saying, because in reality, 3.6, there isn't a section 3.6. There's the introductory sentence, and then there's nothing else, because as Laura said, they've cut it out because it was about health. So maybe it is a question of that actually we don't need 3.6 at all.
I don't. It's an overarching statement about doors being critical to the safety of the occupants.
But we know that, don't we?
We don't need it there. It could be at the opening to the document.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's just a generalisation, isn't it? Let's look down at this. Right, frequency of use.
I think this is what Laura was making comment about.
So Laura, this would actually go after that sentence in what you were saying, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I think what this document's doing is something similar that we did in the NHS. You'd look at the criticality of the door, and then you would look at the frequency of the use of the door. So if you look at this from a residential set, and what they're trying to say here is the criticality, which they cut out all of that section, and then what they're saying is right. Then if you look at the frequency of the use, is that a high use door, medium use, or low use door? And then when you apply those two factors together, that would give you your matrix for your testing.
Yeah.
So it's whether we adopt that approach for a residential premises, in which we would need to look at what's your criticality of that door, what would your frequency of use for the doors be, and then that gives you your matrix again.
In terms of the criticality, is it as simple as is this important for life safety or asset safety?
It's life safety. It'll always be life safety.
Always life safety.
Yeah.
But then in terms of life safety, we're saying that there are, depending on the exact usage, there are different levels of criticality within that.
Well, I think what it's saying, how likely is it to be damaged through overuse? So if you're opening and closing the door on a regular basis, it's likely to take more wear and tear. So therefore, you should be carrying an inspection regime which is more frequent. So that's where that sits. And like Laura said at the very beginning, that you'll get a riser cupboard door that may not be open from 1 month to the next. So, and when it is open, it's only open for a short period. It's not put under any undue stress. We will have other corridor doors, and especially more nowadays, mobility scooters going through buildings, even on people on e-scooters, they don't open the door, they bash through the door. So, yeah.
The concern for me on this one isn't, it's probably should be considered, but it talks about looking at some doors daily. Now, that's not going to be practical for most social housing situations. Fine if you've got supported living and things like that. So that's going to be a challenge to achieve, and we shouldn't probably be trying to recommend something that's going to be very, very costly and almost impossible for most of the larger landlords, certainly.
This is Nick, this is where it goes back to the point what Richard was saying earlier. We edge into part 4 where we're giving guidance about the way to do it. And you'll have staff on site that on our shelter schemes, we have staff on site. We train our staff to report damage, housing officers, and we have rangers or staff that are working on site as caretakers. So they find damage, they report it. That's your daily inspection. It's not a tick box or I've inspected it. It's like you're asking people to be eyes and ears. So that's that's what we're looking for.
It's
even asking residents to do it. Go on, sorry, Nick.
I say it's definitely achievable where you have staff, but where you haven't got staff, you've got an issue because you won't be able to comply with that statement.
No, and I would never recommend a daily. What you're saying is, if you spot damage, report it. So damage should not go unreported for a long period of time, and it's about everybody having eyes and ears, having the facility to report damage.
Yeah, can I just say? Group 4 have in their output have very clearly that staff, not just staff, any staff within the building, but staff who pass through the building, to have training. Obviously not very deep training, but training on the kind of things to look for, so that if they spot something, they know that it's worth reporting. Yeah. So they're kind of covering that, which is where I think it needs to be covered in Group 4, and I know that because I wrote it. So it's that is kind of being covered there, and I think that's where I find this document a little bit confusing, actually, because to me, I understood it that there were the 3 types of inspection, and if you're doing Group 3 and Type 3 inspection, this tells you what to do. Well, somebody who's doing a Type 3 inspection wouldn't be deciding on how often they're going to do it, would they?
No, I think what this is trying to do is trying to get you to sort of look at your doors and look at when it needs to be done. Because if you go a little bit further on, it develops that matrix, which then says a 12-month door, 6-month door, 3-monthly check, or a monthly check. So I think what it's trying to do is categorize your doors for the frequency of the inspections, looking at the criticality of the door and the frequency of use of the door.
Right.
Which is not what I was interpreting it as. To me, the Type 3 inspection was going to be your regular checks of that door and what would need to be checked as part of that door. But this seems to be giving it, categorizing the doors as to the frequency of when they need to be checked.
Yeah, yeah. It's not. Yeah, exactly. It's not just about the door type, is it?
No.
It's gone into other realms.
Yeah, and it talks about the dependency, which is a hospital-based thing. So when we were looking at matrix that you're referring to, Roy, you'd have to change that for the type of property. It might be needs, supported living, might be care home. And that would then lead you to in that matrix. If you scroll down the page, it shows you the matrix, Richard. Then it would.
Sorry, let me do that.
So a lot of this should have come from earlier, installing new doors or existing doors. We should have already identified the frequency.
Yeah, that's the matrix. Yeah.
Right, I see.
To me, this is very healthcare based, and if we were to do this section the same, it would need a complete rewrite, because obviously that's looking at the dependency of your patients. So if you had, the worked example makes sense. If you've got an ITU and it's a high use door, obviously that's more critical, and you would need to be checking those on a monthly basis, which makes sense. But if you think about in a residential block of flats, it's never going to hit these usage rates at all. There's no door in a block of flats that's going to be opened 100 times a day, unless you've got very popular residents who have got people coming and going all the time. But it's never going to be opened at that frequency. So we would have to do a complete rewrite and rework out that matrix. And what we're saying would be a high use store and a low use store.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it worth doing a very, I know we've been talking for a while, but is it worth doing a very quick recap on what we're actually trying to achieve? Because
I think
it does seem that that this section's a bit off, a bit missing the point.
I'm very confused, I have to say. I mean, this obviously you appreciate. I read through this very quickly just before the meeting, so I've not really thought about it. I was doing something very, because Group 4's work is obviously totally different. But what I'm finding is that I'm not really sure what we're supposed to be doing. I don't think it's very clear, because my understanding of it was obviously completely wrong, and it seems from what you guys are saying that there's not a great deal of. I think when we finish this, which will be very shortly now, when we finish this, we need to actually get some clarity on with Alan from that and ask him that question. Because I mean, as you know, my initial reaction was to take anything out about frequency, because that would be covered in the plan in group 4. But it seems, but it wasn't just an odd mention about frequency. There's pages about it, so it's obviously not supposed to be taken out. But that being the case, I'm just a bit confused.
I think what Paul was started with, explaining how the system's done that he works with, that's how I kind of envisage section 3 to be.
Like the mechanics of
what
to do, how
it does
to do
go
it.
on to that. If you keep scrolling down, it does go on to that, and it breaks each of the doors down into types. So it goes into heritage doors, roller shutter doors, hygienic doors, which has probably been taken out, steel doors, and things like that. But again, I think this entire section would need a complete rewrite, because if you think of the fire doors you're likely to see in a residential block of flats, you're more likely to have composite doors, timber doors, all of which your bin chute, hopper doors, all have slightly different requirements.
Yeah, here we go. The
inspection.
difference.
So there's all the different types.
So, yeah, and this is where I wanted to be, or add my comments onto this group, because go back to the very beginning. I thought it was simple. We've developed our own fire door check form, and the questions on it are very simple. The name of the person doing it, reference to the door if it's got that, what you're doing, what property is, where the door's located. Is a door fitted? Yes, or is the door closer fitted? Yes or no? Does it work? Yes or no? Is the door closer shutting on its own without resistance? Yes or no? And there's a requirement to check it from different angles, but you add that to the training. What type of door is it? FD, ferry, etc. No show. Is there a smoke seal present? Yes or no? Is it undamaged? And it's the same for intermittent seal. And then there's a repair required. You can add additional information and then a photo if necessary. And then that goes on through. That's as simple as it gets. If you do it any more differently than that, or you can add one or two to suit your organisation or what your organisation needs. But that's basically what you're looking for in a door. I think we've added as we've realised, you will have glass in the doors. Is the glass damage? You need to include that in the check, because the glass is critical to the fire insulation or for the integrity of the door. And is there any other damage? That's why you have the comments field in there, because you can't plan for every eventuality, but you can cover that through making sure that there's ability for somebody to add a comment on it. And that's, we'll go back to the very beginning of this. We've got to keep it simple. And if the whole process for this is to provide a template for somebody to do the checks, let's come up with that template and put that forward as best practice.
That template's already been established within the government guidance, though, hasn't it, as well? Because we've done our own questions, and we've made sure we've been able to clearly link it back to the government guidance, where it says you must check X, you must check Y. And as long as we can always establish it back to there, and when you go through that point for point, it does fully check the entire door.
Yeah, exactly. And there is guidance from the door timber, the door trade around what you should be looking for in a door. I think if you're not careful, you can go, the pendulum can start in any direction. It's trying to find whether you're doing too little or too much. Get the balance right. And don't make it at this level so onerous that anybody with a bit of common sense can't do it. You shouldn't be bringing in specialist people to do this job, because it will become too onerous to achieve for the general landlord or housing provider.
Absolutely, which is why we've got to keep what we're doing here as simple and as straightforward as possible.
The problem with going into a building at the minute that's not had a type 1 or type 2 survey completed is that then if you've got someone who's not trained, it's got to follow on from the type 1 and type 2.
Absolutely, this absolutely does. If they've not had a type 1 or type 2, they cannot have a type 3. That is absolutely definitely true. Right, we're going to have to go back into the main meeting. So what I'm going to do is, if you agree, I'm going to ask Alan for a bit of clarification on those points that we've raised. If I forget one, jump in. And then I don't know, what do you want to do at that point? I guess we need to, when we know what we're actually doing, we can make a plan as to how we're going to do that. I mean, these half-an-hour meetings are just not long enough, are they, for what we're looking at doing? That's pretty clear. So let's do that, and then.
I'd be interested, as you're in social housing, what it is that your procedures that you follow and what you've got in to assist your staff in carrying out these checks, what you do, because again, there's a massive amount of duplication of effort if we're not careful, and I think this is what we're trying to prevent or trying to promote. This is simplifying the process.
Absolutely.
So we've got a nationally recognised approach, and if you're using what the government say, let's put that into a document where we say this is what we is considered the best practice, because or else we're all interpreting what the government says, and there may be omissions.
And the thing is, as you say, there are a lot of initiatives, a lot of people doing some guidance, but they're all slightly different. And what we've done with in other pieces of guidance we put out, we put it all together. And so it's been all encompassing, along with the experience of just a lot of people. So what I suggest is, right, we'll go back to the meeting now. We'll try and get a bit more clarity from Alan. Then I'll email you all, and we'll have a meeting just with us lot and anybody else who is in group 3, because there are others. And we'll have a meeting, and a proper meeting, a proper lengthened meeting, and get something hammered out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, let's do that. Let's get back, because they'll be waiting for us.
Okay.
All right. Cheers.
Yes.